In this video, we're going to cover a API tool that was created by one of our sales engineers, Jeremy Ward, that covers how to create a monitoring web interface using Django framework to display the status of an SD-WAN deployment using API calls to that device. If you provision an SD-WAN environment in Citrix Demo Center, you will notice that not only do you have access to the SD-WAN devices, but you also have connectivity to the actual monitor tool that Jeremy created. We can see the custom tool that was generated and being displayed leveraging API calls to that SD-WAN device. So the latest status of the device's information, the status of the virtual path state, the overlay state, connectivity to any sites, any dynamic routing that may be in the network, the state of the change management process, and the respective detail of the individual sites in the configuration. For example, if I go into my SD-WAN device and I perform any type of change management, we can actually see the change management status update as we go through this. So I can take the running configuration and I can perform a stage appliance. And you can see that the change management status is applying the staged configuration. It's going through the staged process. And the API tool will pick up the activity that's taking place. Each site currently is in the process of transferring the latest configuration package to those devices. It'll notify which sites are successfully transferred, which ones are still in progress. Okay, you can see now that the two sites that are connected have successfully been transferred. The one that is not connected, it's still waiting, so we'll go ahead and ignore it and just continue the process of change management. And the API tool can be used to show the latest status of the devices by polling and monitoring that device. And really any type of reporting capability that's available in our API, you can leverage it and display it in a similar fashion in any type of consumable, readable format like this that we have for the web interface here. Okay, so now that was a quick demonstration of the tool's capabilities, and I'll now get into actually details of the script that Jeremy created. In your SD-WAN environment, you do have access to Apache Guac, which gives you SSH and RDP access to any of the VMs that we have in the lab environment. You can then select the API monitor tool, which is where this server was created, and we'll walk through some of the inputs. So if we look at the default directory, the actual content of this script was created in the web view directory. We'll first look at the input text file, and that's the monitored device.txt file. Here, we're inputting the IP address and credentials of our MCN device. So the monitor tool, when we look at the lab topology, and the server is running on API monitor tool, and it is connecting into the management of the MCN on 200.150. Okay, so that's the IP address that's being inputted. In addition to the credentials, there's also 5,000 is the millisecond intervals that Java will use to refresh our web browser. By default, the VM is configured to run on boot, but we can kill the server by just killing the PIDs, the process IDs that are actively running. Okay, so as I kill the actual process, our tool will go away Okay, and we can see that the tool is no longer active and the server is no longer active. We've terminated it. So now let's look at where the actual script is being developed. And if we navigate to the login directory, we'll first take a look at that. And the majority of the actual script is done here in the views Python file. So views uses templates to render the HTML page. We'll first scroll down to the very bottom of the file here and look at the main code. The first part of the script will call that monitor device text file, read the inputs, and then the second part of it is it will attempt to open the session to the device after it passes that IP address. And then once the session is open using those credentials, upon a successful connection to that MCN, information is gathered, like virtual path status, route status, etc. And at this point, we're simply just collecting information into arrays and then processing the information. We then pass that information and all those variables into an argument statement. And lastly, we use the login.html page to render the output. So now let's look at templates login, and we will view, let's just look at the content in this directory. We will view the login.html file. Okay, so as we look into the login.html page, we can see how the web page is actually being rendered and developed. We're loading the style sheet. We're looking at that refresh rate and refreshing the browser based on that 5,000 millisecond intervals that was collected from the text file. We're rendering the respective tables that are displayed in that tool and taking in the variable inputs that we've collected using that script. Like, for example, system options, as we collect that, the host name variable is in that collection, so we can then output that and render it in the table. Okay, so with that, that was just a quick run through of that tool that was developed to showcase how to monitor SD-WAN devices using API and to create a simple visual in a web format to display that captured content. All right, so we can then rerun the server by getting back into our web view directory and by issuing the Python command manage.py run server. We can run that server again. Now, by default, that command is inputted into the boot script. So as the environment gets provisioned and that particular API monitor VM starts, that command to start the server will actually get issued, which means that as the environments are available, then the URL to that monitor tool will be active and you could access the server. So if you make any modifications to any of the files to test certain things, you can rerun the server. And this is the output of the actual API calls and the content that's captured and the content that's used to actually render the web page. In addition, let's just open up another block connection to our lab. In the AD directory, I have placed the view web files. So that tar file contains all the content that you need to extract into your own personal VMs and work on those as needed. That AD directory also does have Postman installed, and you can test any API calls using it to maybe play around with and further develop the monitor tool as you need. And by default, there are some connections available, and you can log in to the MCN, and you can perform certain GET commands, API requests like change management, and this is the output that we're actually extracting using that monitor tool to display in our web page. Okay, so that was just an overview of what's available in our SD-WAN environment in regards to a sample monitoring tool leveraging the APIs that are available in Citrix SD-WAN. Thank you.